Cannabis industry is quickly becoming one of the most lucrative markets in the country. According to research from New Frontier Data, annual projections for the cannabis industry is expected to reach $30 billion, folks. That's by the year 2025. And tonight, Ball Family Farm shows us how that could lead to generational wealth in the Black community. CEO Chris Ball and CFO Charles Ball of the Ball Family Farms is with us now to educate us on building generational wealth through cannabis. Chris and Charles, welcome to BNC.
How you doing? Thanks for having us.
Of course. So, Chris, we talk about you guys' backstory a little bit. Chris and Charles, you both have an interesting backstory. Talk about your interest in cannabis growing up in the inner city, and you both were on a mission to help your family. Chris, we'll start with you first.
Yeah, so cannabis, I got introduced to cannabis fairly on. I was about 10, and I recognized it by the funny smelling cigarettes that my dad used to smoke after dinner. So I knew what regular cigarettes smelled like because my mom smoked those, but dad's cigarettes just were a little bit smaller and they smell funny. So, fast forward to family picnics, barbecues, Thanksgiving, Christmas time, stuff like that. I would recognize the cigarette again, but, grandma was smoking it, uncles and aunts were smoking it, cousins were smoking it. So that's pretty much when I started to realize that there was something different about this cigarette. Fast forward to when I turned about 16, I was in high school, and my cousin Earl was the neighborhood weed man. And cousin Earl was always super fresh, always had nice Jordans on and white T-shirts and stuff like that. And I kind of envied that, so I asked cousin Earl to, hook me up with my first ounce of weed. He did, and I was pretty bad at it at that time, so I decided to put it down and just focused on sports and, try to get out of high school and get to college. So when I graduated from high school, my parents told me that they couldn't afford, to send me to college. So my mom and dad, my dad had that old classic conversation, you either going to work or you're going to go to school. So I didn't want to go get a job at that point. So I decided to enroll in junior college, and I knew that I was going to have to fend for myself. Called cousin Earl back. The stakes were a little bit higher this time. I knew that I had to get this done myself, and I knew this was the only way I was going to be able to, pay my tuition, pay for my books, put gas in my car, and food in my stomach. So called cousin Earl back and asked him to, give me another ounce, and this time I made it work. So I did that, for about 2 years until eventually I got my scholarship to University of California, Berkeley. Mm-hmm. So once I got to Berkeley, I put it down. I was on a full ride scholarship, figured, I'm going to be the first kid in my family to go to college. I'm going to go to the NFL, and I'm going to live happily ever after and make millions of dollars. Well, that did not happen. Did graduate, did get some time with the 49ers, spent some time over in NFL Europe and in the CFL, which is where I got bit by the cultivation bug, Canada being the mecca of marijuana. That's the first place I saw cannabis from seed to sale. So I picked that up, started learning how to grow over there, but not really good at it. Started trafficking, cannabis from Canada into the United States. Thank God for statute of limitations. I can now talk about this freely. And made a name for myself in Los Angeles because I was picking up, weed for so cheap in Canada and then selling it in the legacy or traditional market here in Los Angeles. I was able to make a really big name for myself. In fact, I made such a big name that I attracted the attention of the federal government and was indicted by the feds in 2010. Went in, paid my debt to society, came back out, didn't touch it for about 4 years until I got off of probation. And when I got off of probation, I went right back. I bought a 14 Light Grow in Van Nuys, California, started growing from there, and started selling, my products to Prop D compliant shops, the pre-ICO dispensaries. So I did that up until 2018 till I was introduced to the social equity program, which I found out that they were giving licenses out to marijuana convicted drug felons. Went and applied, not thinking that I would get it, but sure enough, got an email and a phone call telling me that I got the license, and Ball Family Farms was born.
Wow. So, it kind of drove you to start hustling, if you will, and make it work for you all and your family. And I love how your family has pulled together to make your business truly a family-run business. How were you able to actually bring family into this business venture? And Charles, we'll start with you on that one.
So I was introduced to it right when, right before Chris got indicted. We're blood brothers, so growing up, it was kind of the same story. However, Chris was always the wild card in the family, and I was more of the stable one. So When he did, we actually made a trip together, and it didn't pan out the way we expected it to. And so when we got back, I told him I would never go anywhere with him again. And after that, he started to talk to me about, legalization after a few years. And I'm like, okay, I always said he was the one that's going to go in and I'm the one who's going to get him out. So, I kept telling him like, no, man, I'm not really going to stick with you on this one. Like, you go ahead and do your thing. And then finally, when he was talking about legalization, I started to kind of listen to him. And on Mother's Day, we were with my mom, and he said, Chuck, I'm serious, man. If we do, if it legalizes, can you please come? And I said, man, if you're serious about this and really doing it the right way, then I'll be on board. So once we started that, I got bit with the bug by going in and just watering plants. I realized that he was serious about it. And that's how I kind of came into it as well.
So your story, or your brother's story, helped kind of change the way you all saw cannabis. I mean, at one point, like you said, many people were just being thrown in prison for it, but now you've kind of changed into something else. So talk a little bit about the fact that, we keep hearing about how Black lives will improve if we create more generational wealth. So let's talk about cannabis leading to generational wealth and why this would be such a smart move in our community.
Yeah, I really believe that, the cannabis industry has been built on the backs of people of color, so, this is not a new business. This is not a new industry. I know with it legalizing and it becoming and getting all the national attention that everyone thinks that it's a new business, but this business has been around for the past 30, 40 years. It's the reason why I was indicted, so, and people of color have suffered from this the most, from unfair policing in our communities. They're given way more time in the prison system, just a bunch of convictions and stuff like that. So this product has basically, because of the government, ripped apart the color families, the people of color families in our community. So now it's only right that we get our fair share. I hate to bring up the 40 acres and a mule, parallel, but it's almost the same thing. If you're going to rip apart our families and our communities over this, and now that it's legal, it should not only go to the rich white or Jewish communities. We should actually have an opportunity to participate. So, for guys like myself, it's very important that Ball Family Farm stands for that. It's very important that I step out into the forefront and say, hey, I'm not a rich white person with all this money. No, I'm a guy who was actually disenfranchised by the war on drugs. I was actually affected by it. I sat in prison for it. And now that I have my company, it's only right that I can kind of try to come up and be the voice of a community that's been, that has suffered so much, over this product and over this business.